A decade ago, I was on the trail of one of the country's most elusive serial killers. But it wasn't until 2023 when he was finally caught. The answers were there, hidden in plain sight. So why did it take so long to catch him? I'm Josh Zeman, and this is Monster, Hunting the Long Island Serial Killer, the investigation into the most notorious killer in New York since the Son of Sam. Available now. Listen for free on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm John Polk. For years, I was the poster boy of the conversion therapy movement, the ex-gay who married an ex-lesbian and traveled the world telling my story of how I changed my sexuality from gay to straight. You might have heard my story, but you've never heard the real story.
John has never been anything but gay, but he really tried hard not to be.
Listen to Atonement, the John Polk story, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Kyle. Could you draw up a quick document with the basic business plan? Just one page, as a Google Doc, and send me the link? Thanks.
Hey, just finished drawing up that quick one-page business plan for you. Here's the link.
But there was no link. There was no business plan. I hadn't programmed Kyle to be able to do that yet. I'm Evan Ratliff, here with a story of entrepreneurship in the AI age. Listen as I attempt to build a real startup run by fake people. Check out the second season of my podcast, Shell Game, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Cheryl McCollum, host of the podcast Zone 7. Zone 7 ain't a place, it's a way of life. I've worked hundreds of cold cases you've heard of and thousands you haven't. We started this podcast to teach the importance of teamwork in solving these crazy crimes. Come join us in learning from detectives, prosecutors, authors, canine handlers, forensic experts, and most importantly, victims' family members. Listen to Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
On this episode, we're continuing to look into ANTM psychological evaluations and how they were really used. If you haven't listened to our first episode on the psyche evals, go back and listen to that. And before I go on, I want to say that this episode is particularly dark. We're talking about trauma, including sexual assault and physical abuse. We're also talking about suicide and suicidal ideation. Now on to the episode. While I was doing interviews for this show, I asked every model I spoke to what they were told the ANTM psych eval was for. Here's what Cycle 24's Gina Turner said.
They were explaining on a stage what the use of the psych evals were for. And it was just like, just so we can understand you and get to know you better and just make this a great experience. They didn't really say it was to manipulate you or to think ahead of you or to think before you could or to put together a certain narrative.
But once she got cast on the show, that's exactly how her psych eval was used. Gina had a traumatic childhood. She said her mother struggled with drug addiction, and because of that, Gina was in and out of foster care. As an adult, she experienced sexual assault and suicidal ideation. She told the show psychologists all of this. Gina expected that what she told them would stay in those rooms, that it was all necessary information to ensure everyone's safety. Gina was cast on the show, but once the camera started rolling, she discovered that those deeply traumatic experiences she shared in her psych eval had been given to ANTM producers. Gina had a whirlwind of a season. She was eliminated, brought back, eliminated again, then saved, and went on to become one of 2 finalists, only to lose the competition in the finale. After one of those eliminations, the producers pulled her for an exit interview.
They interviewed me for 7 hours. They kept me in a room with an interviewer, a sound guy, and a cameraman. The majority of that interview was them poking and prodding at me and asking me questions about, how traumatizing my childhood was and things I've gone through with my mom and being in and out of foster care and how was it, having a mom who, struggled with drug addiction and what did that do to you?
For legal reasons, I have to say this. We can't confirm what Gina is saying about her mom here. But according to Gina, she shared this with the ANTM psychologist, and the show producers brought it up in this confessional. Gina says she started to shut down, but the producers didn't stop until they got the reaction they wanted.
Then that conversation very quickly turned into them talking about personal traumas and like my mental health and me talking about being suicidal. And I just remember for hours and hours on end, they just kept focusing on me being suicidal. And it's like, I just want to talk about something happy. I don't want to talk about growing up in foster care. I don't want to talk about what it's like to see my mom smoke crack through a doorway. I don't want to talk about any of that shit. And like, it was specifically about the suicidal thing. I was exhausted. I was physically so exhausted. And I remember putting my hands on and I was like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I'm crying.
I wanted to win America's Next Top Model. I thought I could do it. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
But that is literally the clip that they used for how I emotionally responded for losing the competition. And that will forever stick with me. Like my exit from that show visually, at least the way it was presented, was actually me talking about being suicidal.
Gina would be the last top model contestant to experience this kind of pressure and manipulation. Because that clip we just heard was from the final episode of ANTM ever made. After 15 years, the show went off the air in 2018, and they closed it out the same way they started.
They still couldn't put me in a positive light. They still couldn't empower me. They still tried to like keep me boxed into this like poor, pitiful underdog girl. And for that, I can say fuck them. Yeah.
Wanna be on top. Wanna be on top. Wanna be on top.
Welcome to The Curse of America's Next Top Model. I'm Bridget Armstrong. On this episode, we're continuing our deep dive into ANTM psychological evaluations. Last episode, you heard the models say they were told their conversations with the show's psychologists were to make sure they were a safe choice for the show. They told the psychologists their deepest, darkest secrets, because that's what they were asked to do. Like Gina, most contestants thought they were speaking to the psychologist in confidence, but they were wrong. I've talked to contestants who say their traumatic experiences were later used by producers to manipulate them for the cameras. The fact that producers were even allowed to do that was buried deep in the contestants' contracts. And then there's the lingering question about the real purpose of the psych eval. There are several contestants whose trauma history and history with suicidal ideation should have gotten them red flagged by the show's psychologist. After ANTM, some of those contestants turned to drugs and alcohol, and one even took her own life. In the contract the contestants signed, they waived their rights to confidentiality, meaning if the psychologist unearthed something in the psych eval that made a potential cast member a danger, they had the permission to share it with producers, which makes sense. But they also had permission to share anything else they found out in the evaluations. The contract says, quote, information obtained by producers may be used for purposes of selecting participants and in connection with the program in general, including, but not limited to, the production of the program. That language is pretty vague, but that one line gave producers the clearance to use what was shared in the psych eval to produce ANTM. If I saw it the way it was written in the contract, I don't think I would connect the dots. And most of the models I talked to told me they didn't understand this part of the process. ANTM made a point of telling contestants the psych eval was for their safety, but they didn't mention its other use. Maybe because they knew the contestants wouldn't be so forthcoming with their personal trauma if they knew how it would be used. Producers bringing up contestants' deepest trauma on set seemed to be a pattern for ANTM. Sarah Hartshorn saw it on Cycle 9.
Somebody had a sick relative, a very sick relative that they were close to, and they would ask them about it all the time. They would push her and push her and push her, like, are you afraid they're going to die while you're here? Are you afraid that if you don't win, you will have missed out on time with them in vain? And
even more disturbing, Yuvi Gomez from Cycle 4 told me something she opened up about during her ANTM psych eval was later shared with the producers of Tyra's talk show without UV's permission.
They ask us all these questions about like our early childhood, our life, our traumas. And the Tyra show called me because I had a pretty traumatic childhood, to say the least. And they used some of the information that I had told them for America's Next Top Model about my family. And they were like, we're doing a show where you confront family. And we know your mom was a very absent mother and there was some abuse and neglect. We want you to come on the show and confront her about it. I said, abso-freaking-lutely not. We'll talk to each other face to face. I ain't taking her on TV to call my mom out. But the fact that they did that, I felt violated that they used that. It felt very grimy. We were there talking to a psychologist about all our woes and struggles, and then you're going to bring it back up. It just felt very yucky.
Again, for legal reasons, I have to say this. We can't confirm what UV is saying about her mom here. But this is what she says she told the ANTM psychologist. And somehow, that information later got to the producers of Tyra's talk show. It was an entirely different program, but owned by the same production company. During my reporting on ANTM, this idea of producers manipulating the contestants with personal trauma from their past came up a lot. But it wasn't just in those confessional interviews or behind the scenes. Some models say their trauma was used to create storylines, conflict, and shocking moments on the show. And I talked to a producer who confirmed that. Former ANTM creative producer Andrew Patterson told me that if a contestant shared a fear of something in the psych eval, he was told about it so he could craft photo shoots and runways that would put the contestant face to face with their fears. The contestant would either come out triumphant having faced their trauma or have a complete meltdown. Either way, it made good TV.
We throw these elements of fear because it's a competition reality show. Let's, see how they react.
I always thought these photo shoots and runways were designed to get a reaction out of all the contestants. But Andrew told me sometimes he would look at their casting files for personal phobias and design challenges to fuck with specific contestants. Those photo shoots and runways usually involve spiders or heights. A little fear factor element. Most people are afraid of bugs and hanging off the side of tall buildings. But Lisa D'Amato says it got a lot more personal. You've heard from Lisa before. She's the one who peed in a diaper on Cycle 5 and was later awarded that controversial win in Cycle 17. During her initial ANTM psych eval, Lisa says she was asked about her most disgusting experience. Strange question. But Lisa had just been through something that she couldn't forget.
I had taken care of my grandpa and my grandma. Me and my grandma were really close. And my grandpa had just passed away. And at the funeral, my grandma had the worst accident ever. It was basically just like she couldn't control going to the bathroom. So when she went to the bathroom at the funeral, the service is going on. She has the hugest accident, number 2, right? I realized she didn't come back. She was with a walker. And so I went to the bathroom to go check on her. And I realized that she shit all over herself. It's all over her dress. She was trying to clean herself. She doesn't have that much balance. I'm realizing that it's on the walls because she has it on her hands. There's poop everywhere. And this is her husband's funeral. So I'm just like holding in, trying to be strong for her, but I'm also devastated. The smell is disgusting. I cleaned everything up as fast as I could with just paper towels and water. We didn't come out for like 20 minutes. So we finally came out. We were wet. I cleaned us as best we could, but we smelled like poop. And I just thought, this is the worst way for my grandma to have this experience.
Lisa says she shared all of this with the show's psychologist.
I'm curious of what the other girls said. I guess my story beat theirs, I guess. On Cycle 5, they had us do a challenge. Guess what the challenge was? The challenge was to go through a obstacle course in cow manure, where you're completely covered in cow manure. You have to like dig yourself in the ground to get under something, not touch things.
Lisa's gonna go first.
Where's my army grease?
Here you go.
Lisa is in heaven.
She is tough. Here we go. What? Leave it like this. Go.
Grab Lisa.
Climb the high walls.
Oh, Lisa. Come on, Lisa.
Drag it. Front army front crawl. All the way down. Hi. Way to get dirty, girl.
I love being dirty, so this actually is nothing to me.
Nice and dirty. There you go.
I just have to add, there is some question about whether it was mud, manure, or mud mixed with manure. But either way, it was nasty. That was the whole point of the challenge.
And then they lock you in the limo. They filled everything with, covered it in plastic, and made you just sit in there with each other with the windows up for about 4 hours, where everyone just smells like poop. And there's a moment actually that aired on television where I'm like just sitting in the car and all the girls are bitching and I'm just in complete silence because I realized what this is. I realized that they got this from my story of my grandma. I felt completely manipulated.
After doing the obstacle course and sitting in the limo, the contestants had to go to a casting with Elle Girl magazine and try to be pretty and charming while covered with manure or mud or some combination. It's worth noting, Lisa won the challenge. Lisa told me this experience isn't even the most disturbing thing she shared with the ANTM psychologist. She says she was very candid about her difficult childhood and the sexual abuse she survived. After the break, you hear what Lisa shared during her psych eval and why I think it should have been a red flag for producers. Plus, we'll talk about the other contestants who may have exhibited signs of trauma, who later met tragic ends.
Hi, I'm Dr. Priyanka Wali.
And I'm Hari Kondabolu.
It's a new year, and on the podcast Health Stuff, we're resetting the way we talk about our health.
Which means being honest about what we know, what we don't know, and how messy it can all be. I like to sleep in late and sleep early. Is there a chronotype for that, or am I just depressed?
We talk to experts who share real experiences and insight.
You just really need to find where it is that you can have an impact in your own life and just start doing that.
We break down the topics you want to know more about.
Sleep, stress, mental health, and how the world around us affects our overall health.
We talk about all the ways to keep your body and mind, inside and out, healthy. We human beings, all we want is connection. We just want to connect with each other.
Health Stuff is about learning, laughing, and feeling a little less alone.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Cheryl McCollum, host of the podcast Zone 7. Zone 7 ain't a place, it's a way of life. Now, this ain't just any old podcast, honey. We're going to be talking to family members of victims, detectives, prosecutors, and some nationally recognized experts that I have called on over the years to help me work these difficult cases. I've worked hundreds of cold cases you've heard of and thousands you haven't. We started this podcast to teach the importance of teamwork in solving these crazy crimes. Come join us in learning from detectives, prosecutors, authors, canine handlers, forensic experts, and most importantly, victims' family members. Come be a part of my Zone 7 while building yours. Listen to Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Kyle. Could you draw up a quick document with the basic business plan, just one page, as a Google Doc, and send me the link? Thanks.
Hey, just finished drawing up that quick one-page business plan for you. Here's the link.
But there was no link. There was no business plan. It's not his fault. I hadn't programmed Kyle to be able to do that yet. My name is Evan Ratliff. I decided to create Kyle, my AI co-founder, after hearing a lot of stuff like this from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
There's this betting pool for the first year that there's a one-person billion-dollar company, which would have been like unimaginable without AI, and now will happen.
I got to thinking, could I be that one person? I'd made AI agents before for my award-winning podcast, Shell Game. This season on Shell Game, I'm trying to build a real company with a real product run by fake people.
Oh, hey, Evan. Good to have you join us. I found some really interesting data on adoption rates for AI agents in small to medium businesses.
Listen to Shell Game on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Ed Helms.
And I'm Cal Penn, and we are the hosts of Earsay, the Audible and iHeart audiobook club.
This week on the podcast, I am talking to film and TV critic, radio and podcast host, and Harry Potter superfan Rhianna Dillon to discuss Audible's full cast adaptation of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. What moments in this audiobook capture the feeling of the magical world best for you, or just stood out the most?
I always loved reading about the Quidditch matches, and I think the audio really gets it because it just plunges you right into the stands. You have the crowd sounds like all around you. It is surround sound, especially if you're listening in headphones.
Listen to Earsay, the Audible and iHeart audiobook club on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
As I've been reporting on ANTM, I noticed a pattern. I've talked to over a dozen models for this show and watched hundreds of their interviews. And I've been alarmed at how many ANTM contestants are abuse survivors. I know abuse is common, especially for women. But on every cycle, there are multiple contestants with harrowing backgrounds. And something about this pattern sticks with me because I don't think it's coincidental. Lisa D'Amato told me she shared everything with the ANTM psychologist, including her darkest childhood trauma.
Cycle 5. They had me see 3 different therapists, but I passed from all of them, which is also an important thing to let you know. Is according to them, if you get cast on the show, it means that you are safe.
Just a heads up, Lisa is going to talk about childhood sexual abuse. Here's what she told ANTM psychologists.
Let me take a deep breath. Okay, when I went into my psych evaluations with the therapists on Cycle 5, they asked me about my relationship with my mother, my parents, my upbringing, as they did with everybody. For me, I had been molested by my mom's boyfriend from the time I was 8 till 12. My sister and I just lived in fear. It was a devastating existence.
Lisa says she tried to tell her mom, and she didn't believe her. Instead, she blamed Lisa.
Whenever I would stick up for myself to my mom and be like, we don't deserve this, she would tell us, like, who do you think you are? Like, you're nothing. Go fucking kill yourself. That's the way my mom would talk to me. So yeah, top model, the therapist all knew about this.
You know the deal. Legally, I have to say I can't confirm the things Lisa told me about her mother. But Lisa says when she shared this with the ANTM psychologist, she was still in her early 20s. She hadn't fully worked through a lot of her trauma. She said she'd thought about taking her own life before being on ANTM Cycle 5. Dr. Steven Stein is the psychologist who worked on reality shows like Survivor and Big Brother. You met him last episode. I asked Dr. Stein what other concerns, aside from aggression and safety issues, would make him rule out someone as a potential cast member.
Someone who may show signs of suicide, may have had experiences or attempted of suicide.
Lisa wasn't the only one who told me she talked about suicide with the ANTM evaluators. Remember at the beginning of this episode, Gina says producers pushed her to talk about her own experience with suicidal thoughts. That was something the psychologist must have noted before Gina was cast. Dr. Stein said the other red flag he looks for are addiction issues. Lisa's edit on Cycle 5 pretty much revolved around her perceived drinking problem. And she told me the stress of being on ANTM contributed to her drinking.
I had been drinking because of the way they were torturing me in my interviews. They kept abusing me with my childhood trauma. They kept manipulating my feelings, and it was just devastating. I was trying to self-soothe. That's what the drinking was. It was me self-soothing.
After ANTM Cycle 5, Lisa did another reality show, Celeb Rehab. That show's premise is in the name. Famous people live in a house together while getting help for drug and alcohol issues from a doctor who specializes in addiction. We don't know if the ANTM psychologist knew anything about Lisa's potential drinking problem when she auditioned for Cycle 5, but they definitely knew about it when they brought her back for All Stars. Lisa told me the models on All Stars understood the show more their second time around, so they weren't as eager to play into the drama. Lisa said when producers couldn't get the juice they needed in the confessionals, they turned to alcohol.
They had guys there with champagne. So they're like, okay, well, if we can't get them from the interviews, we'll get them right away and see who can get drunk and get this thing going. I said no to the champagne probably about 5 times.
I'm not a mental health professional, but if I'm just judging based on what Dr. Stein told me and the information I've gathered about the ANTM eval, I don't know if Lisa should have been cast on ANTM. Even if ANTM producers didn't know about her alcohol abuse and history of suicidal thoughts before Cycle 5, they should have known after. Lisa told consulting producer Oliver Twixt about how after she was eliminated from Cycle 5, she stayed on set in a hotel nearby, waiting for the season to wrap, as is the case with all the contestants. While they were stuck in limbo, Lisa says she and another contestant faked a suicide attempt as a prank. She says that got her labeled a liability on set and sent home immediately. But a few years later, when ANTM was casting for their All-Star season, they called her and asked her to join the cast, which she did. There are other models who may have had serious trauma in their past, models who made it on the show and later went down dangerous paths. Kimberly Rzewski was a contestant on Cycle 10. She had blonde hair, a round face, and a pouty expression. She had a very cute, almost baby face that masked the pain she was carrying inside.
I'm Kim. I'm 20 years old from Worcester, Massachusetts.
So what do you do for a living?
I work at a bank. I'm a teller.
Do you ever take money?
Yeah, a lot of money.
You do?
What?
She asked you, do you take money?
Oh, like steal it?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no. The federal offense.
Kim's time on the show was brief. She decided to leave after the first elimination of the season.
Do you want to be here?
To be completely honest, like the whole fashion thing, it doesn't interest me at all.
Why did you come here? Why did you come here?
I learned how to like express in pictures, but like the whole designer thing, like, you know, I don't believe in the whole like, you know, I need to wear designer outfits and like.
But you don't need to wear designer outfits as a model.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying like I don't find it interesting.
Do you want to just go home?
Yeah.
All right. Go home.
Later, after the cycle ended, Kim revealed the real reason why she self-eliminated. Right before filming, her ex-boyfriend died by suicide, and Kim was having a hard time coping. We don't know if Kim shared this information with ANTM, but it seems like she might have, because after the season, she was asked to share the real story on Tyra's talk show. Here's Kim's segment on The Tyra Show.
3 months before the show, my ex-boyfriend committed suicide. It was by far the hardest thing I have ever gone through. And at that point in my life, it was so sudden, and I rushed into the whole top model thing, which I love fashion. I loved being there. I loved meeting Tyra, and I wanted it so bad, but I didn't feel good on the inside. I was a mess. You know, I got there and I'm like, this is just overwhelming.
It makes it worse.
I can't do this right now because all I have is the death on my mind.
And your ex-boyfriend was not the first person in your life to commit suicide?
No. When I was in 7th grade, my mom committed suicide. So it kind of even made it worse because I started feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing to people? Why is everyone around me dying? And I got into a pretty bad depression and a lot of anxiety. I was in and out of the hospital having panic attacks. It was hard.
We might never know how much of this Kimberly shared with the ANTM psychologist, because tragically, Kim took her own life in 2016. We don't know if her participation in the show contributed to her mental health decline, but we do know the pressure of being on ANTM was too much for her to handle. That's why she walked off the set herself. But if the show conducted thorough psych evals, how did someone like Kim slip through the cracks? Unfortunately, Kimberly's story is just one of the ANTM tragedies that raises questions. Here's a conversation Jay Manuel had on his YouTube Live with drag queen Raja, who you may know from RuPaul's Drag Race. Raja was also a makeup artist on ANTM.
There's an elephant in the room to this season that I find a little bit like maybe there was a curse to it, because we gotta talk about JL and Renee.
Yeah. The season they're referring to is Cycle 8. That season had 2 contestants who faced tough times after the show. JL Strauss was one of them. JL was the wild child of her season. She was fun, though. Like, if you went out with her, you would have the time of your life, but you might end the night running from the police. But sometimes her behavior on ANTM seemed a bit erratic. There was an episode on Cycle 8 where the models were being judged on how well they interacted with celebrities at a party. 50 Cent was there. And what started out as a seemingly flirty interaction ended with him pushing her into a pool.
You ain't supposed to be over here right now.
Yeah, I know, but your eyes were falling.
I asked you to leave.
Get mad.
JL deserved it because she didn't leave that man alone.
JL was being annoying, but pushing her into a pool took it too far. I swear 50 Cent's always been an asshole. Here's Jasleen, the winner of Cycle 8, talking to Oliver Twixt. She's recalling JL's behavior on their season.
JL was a rock star on our season. She's like reality TV star gold. But when you think about some of these personalities now, in retrospect, how and why they were developed that way, there was actually something already being rooted from her background that was causing her to kind of outburst the way she would on the show.
Yeah.
Jasleen seems to be skating around something we all saw. JL's behavior was off. We don't know if JL had substance abuse issues at the time, and I have to say, there's no evidence that she did. But she did have friends who were struggling with addiction. We saw her get news of a friend's overdose death during her season.
JL checked her messages and found out that a close friend of hers had passed away.
Hello?
What's going on?
She overdosed.
Oh no! Okay, I'm gonna call you back because I want to go outside because I'm gonna freak out, okay? Oh God!
After being eliminated from Cycle 8, JL developed an addiction to meth and other drugs. In 2012, her family reached out to the Dr. Phil show to try to get her help. When she appeared on the show, she looked nothing like the beautiful, vibrant model we met on ANTM a few years before. She was gone, and her skin was blotchy. Her teeth had started to rot. She looked way older than 29.
You're doing drugs, you're living in crappy hotels, you're stripping in some sleazeball joint.
I don't want everybody to know all that.
Well, I didn't.
Why is it everybody's business?
I didn't bring it up until you lied. If you had just said yes, then we'd have gone on and talked about something else. Look, I get it, but you've had a crappy deal all along. What happened to you when you were 10 years old?
Oh my God, I don't want to talk about that.
You don't have to talk about it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you reached out for help, right? And did they believe you? No, they didn't believe you. This isn't just your problem. This is a family problem.
Dr. Phil seemed to be alluding to something bad that happened to JL when she was a kid. I don't know if she shared that with the ANTM psychologist. JL later said she felt exploited by the Dr. Phil show. And from the tape, it sounds like he was more interested in putting her on blast than actually helping her. But JL eventually got clean. She got a job as an addiction counselor and remained clean for 5 years before tragically passing of breast cancer in 2018. Other top model contestants, including Carrie D. English, the Cycle 7 winner, have shared their opinions about JL's time on ANTM. Carrie D. told Gawker she didn't think ANTM producers did enough to vet JL, especially given the stress of being on the show and the struggles the models face after. Carrie D. added that, quote, all they saw was a personality good for television. The psych eval was supposed to be a guardrail to make sure nothing violent happened on set, to try to minimize the things the show could be held liable for or that could harm the production. But there was a glaring blind spot. It wasn't concerned with how the show itself might affect contestants' mental health in the long run. After contestants were sent home, they told me no one from ANTM ever checked in on them or their mental well-being. They thought being on the show would be their ticket into the modeling industry. But as we know, many former contestants experience rejection after rejection, in part because of how the show portrayed them. After the break, the story of one model who says being on ANTM sent her into a downward spiral towards drugs and crime.
Hi, I'm Dr. Priyanka Wali.
And I'm Hari Kondabolu.
It's a new year, and on the podcast Health Stuff, we're resetting the way we talk about our health.
Which means being honest about what we know, what we don't know, and how messy it can all be. I like to sleep in late and sleep early. Is there a chronotype for that, or am I just depressed?
We talk to experts who share real experiences and insight.
You just really need to find where it is that you can have an impact in your own life and just start doing that.
We break down the topics you want to know more about.
Sleep, stress, mental health, and how the world around us affects our overall health.
We talk about all the ways to keep your body and mind, inside and out, healthy. We human beings, all we want is connection. We just want to connect with each other.
Health Stuff is about learning, laughing, and feeling a little less alone.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Cheryl McCollum, host of the podcast Zone 7. Zone 7 ain't a place, it's a way of life. Now, this ain't just any old podcast, honey. We're going to be talking to family members of victims, detectives, prosecutors, and some nationally recognized experts that I have called on over the years to help me work these difficult cases. I've worked hundreds of cold cases you've heard of and thousands you haven't. We started this podcast to teach the importance of teamwork in solving these crazy crimes. Come join us in learning from detectives, prosecutors, authors, canine handlers, forensic experts, and most importantly, victims' family members. Come be a part of my Zone 7 while building yours. Listen to Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Kyle. Could you draw up a quick document with the basic business plan, just one page, as a Google Doc, and send me the link? Thanks.
Hey, just finished drawing up that quick one-page business plan for you. Here's the link.
But there was no link. There was no business plan. It's not his fault. I hadn't programmed Kyle to be able to do that yet. My name is Evan Ratliff. I decided to create Kyle, my AI co-founder, after hearing a lot of stuff like this from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
There's this betting pool for the first year that there's a one-person billion-dollar company, which would have been like unimaginable without AI, and now will happen.
I got to thinking, could I be that one person? I'd made AI agents before for my award-winning podcast, Shell Game. This season on Shell Game, I'm trying to build a real company with a real product run by fake people.
Oh, hey, Evan. Good to have you join us. I found some really interesting data on adoption rates for AI agents in small to medium businesses.
Listen to Shell Game on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
On June 11th, 1998, a deputy from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department went missing.
It's an all-out manhunt for John Auger. Every search and rescue team in LA County has been called in to help.
Within days, tips started flooding into the Sheriff's Department.
The rumor around the drug scene was that a deputy was taken care of.
Is this the story of a man who just got lost in the desert? Or of a cover-up inside the nation's largest sheriff's department?
A homicide captain saying, "Detective, do not find out if this guy's guilty or innocent." Who does that?
Valley of Shadows. a new series from Pushkin Industries about crime and corruption in California's high desert.
Do you have any advice for us while looking into this disappearance?
I wouldn't do it alone.
Listen to Valley of Shadows on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Renee Alway made it to the final 3 on Cycle 8. She did well in the competition, but she was the season's villain. She had beefs with a few models. One of them almost came to blows. It got so bad, Tyra came to the house to do an intervention, where Renee was the subject. Tyra set Renee down beside her and had each girl go around and say how Renee had wronged them.
You've been negative to everybody so many times. It's like, how am I gonna believe you?
At the casting week, you were not saying very good things.
I feel like she has more issues inside that she has to deal with, because I think that's just all the front.
She makes a lot of valid points when she says that there is stuff going on internally with you.
Sometimes when you talk, you have a tendency to talk down to somebody.
Renee was defensive at first, but after hearing how the girls felt about her, she showed some vulnerability.
This is your chance to address all of these girls right now.
I'm sorry for anything I might have said to hurt or offend you guys. It's a defense mechanism for myself. I've been hurt by anybody that I've ever loved besides my husband and my son has hurt me.
From that episode on, Renee tried to change her attitude, and she made it to the final 3 on that season. One thing ANTM loved, a redemption arc. After she left the show, Renee did the top model spinoff, Modelville, a competition reality show that aired as a recurring segment on Tyra's talk show. Here's Renee talking with another contestant, Bianca Golden, about how hard it was to get modeling jobs after ANTM.
It's very rare for Black models to work right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for me to find work too, and I'm like as white as they come.
And here's Renee on Modelville talking about being abused as a child.
I went through some horrible things when I was growing up, and it made me very angry and bitter and just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just get angry with people, you know, like that was my mentality.
What did you go through?
I was extremely abused when I was growing up. And it wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional, it was everything.
Renee came in second place on Modelville and third place on ANTM. She did well on both shows, but that still didn't help her once she got into the real world. After Modelville, Renee's life took a turn for the worse. She was a mother, out of work, and desperate to make it as a model. She said she'd used drugs before ANTM, but this time, her habit got out of control. She developed an addiction to heroin. That led to homelessness and a life of crime. In 2013, she was arrested on felony burglary charges and sentenced to 12 years in prison. She got out early in 2018. We couldn't get Renee to do an interview for this podcast, so I went back to an interview she did with an ABC affiliate. It was taped while Renee was in prison.
I got into the world and I went, okay, like here I am, you know, ready to do this. And it was just closed door after closed door after closed door. That was really hard to take. I felt like a failure because I couldn't get past the reality TV stigma that had been put on me.
It's striking that when Renee was given the opportunity to speak out after her arrest, she pointed back to ANTM, saying the show set her up for failure.
I mean, let's just take a look at, just for America's Next Top Model, and let's not look at any other reality TV competition. How many of those girls do you see working today? Very few. Even the winners. Most of the winners are just on doing their regular life or barely making it in the industry. It's almost like a setup for failure. Once you're done with reality TV, they don't look back at you. They don't, there's no like check on you and see how you're doing. It's just over, it's done. And it's kind of all this buildup for just a very big letdown.
Like most of the models I've spoken with, Renee never heard from anyone from the show after she left.
I can honestly tell you that I did not get a single phone call from Tyra, from anybody checking up until they wanted me to do Modelville. And then after that, that was it. that was it. I mean, once you're out the door, you're out the door, and they look on to the next, which you can't hardly blame them because that's their job. Their job is to keep moving forward and bringing new entertainment to the masses, and, you know, that's what America wants. I can honestly say that there was never any outreach at all done after the show. I mean, after the elimination, while we were still there, still filming, a therapist got on the phone and you talked to a therapist for about 5-10 minutes. And that was the gist of it, you know?
Renee says she doesn't blame ANTM for the choices she made. In the part you didn't hear of that interview, she takes accountability for her actions. She acknowledges that lots of models are disappointed with their careers after ANTM, and they don't turn to drugs or crime. I understand America's Next Top Model isn't a mentorship program, no matter how much Tyra tried to sell us the Big Sister Act. Technically, the show doesn't have any responsibility to the models after they leave. And realistically, not everyone was going to have a big modeling career. But at the very least, they could have done something to make sure the models were prepared to handle the potential letdown, especially the girls who seemed like they would take it the hardest. Offering additional mental health resources to contestants after a show wraps isn't unheard of. In fact, Dr. Steven Stein says it's something he offers on the shows he works on, and he's been doing it for decades.
Generally, what I like to do, and many shows do, is we give them up to 3 sessions of therapy once they have completed the show. So usually I meet with them all when they're eliminated, see how they're doing. If we get the sense that somebody needs more help, I'll refer to someone in their hometown. I'll find a therapist for them or a choice of 3 therapists, and they can continue for 2 or 3 sessions or on their own more than that. Again, it depends on the show, what they're willing to fund.
From what I've heard, this isn't how it went down on ANTM. Even contestants I've spoken to who shared serious trauma histories or suicidal ideation in their casting say they received very little follow-up from the show's psychologist. And I should point out here, that wasn't necessarily the psychologist's decision. Like Dr. Stein said, the level of post-show psychological care all came down to the budget, and that's a decision made at the very top. Certainly after the success of its first few seasons, you'd think ANTM could have allocated more money for mental health resources. But they didn't. After she was eliminated, Renee always said she talked to a therapist for 10 minutes on the phone. Other models I've talked to said something similar. Renee may be an extreme example of someone who couldn't handle the reality of life after reality TV. But I know she's not the only ANTM model who felt disappointed and depressed after leaving the show. Brittany Brower from Cycle 4 is one of the many models I talked to who felt that way.
You're on this high from top model, and then that starts to slow down. That's when the depression stage came, and that takes a toll on everything.
Immediately after the show, Brittany was riding the wave of opportunities that came with her 15 minutes of fame. But as that time passed, people forgot about Brittany.
The next cycle comes up, then another cycle comes up. It just took me a long time to bounce back from that. I had to figure out who I was really again after top model and figure out how to truly be me, the strong version of me again, and not be so let down.
Contestants were told the psych eval measured their mental fitness. But beyond what they could be held accountable for, ANTM didn't seem to care much about the contestants' long-term well-being. That may be well within their rights. But morally, it raises questions. After talking to Dr. Stein, I'm realizing ANTM was a particularly brazen offender in the world of reality TV. For 24 seasons, it picked apart women's traumas and bodies to entertain us. And afterwards, the show didn't even check on them. It didn't offer resources, which is the least it could do. That's what other shows were doing at the time. And it didn't seem to learn or change its process as the rest of the industry took more accountability for their contestants' well-being. Then there's the matter of how they conducted the psych eval and how they used them. If they were about safety, why would they cast contestants they ruled out as angry or troubled and bring them back to have confrontations on the show? Why would they cast contestants who've shown signs of substance abuse? Why would they cast contestants who shared their history with suicidal ideation? Why would they cast a contestant who experienced the suicide of 2 loved ones, one of which had just happened? I think it's because they needed them. They needed people with traumatic backgrounds, behavioral issues, substance use disorders, and personality disorders. People who were likely to act out on camera. They needed these people to entertain us. So in a way, maybe the Psych Eval worked exactly as producers intended, as a way to find the people they thought they needed to make a good reality show, which is exactly what they did. One last thing before we go. We reached out to the executive producer of ANTM, Ken Mock, so that he could provide more perspective on the Psych Evals and what we've discussed in this episode. But we did not hear from him before airing this episode. On the next episode, we'll explore how ANTM prioritized making the best reality TV, not the best models.
And I get a tap on the back of my shoulder from Ken Mock saying, "Stop it, we want to see these girls cry. This is going to make great television." And I just stood back and I'm like, yeah, okay, it is good TV.
A lot of those girls didn't get looked at as people. They were a product. If they were boring, they got cut.
Thanks for listening to The Curse of America's Next Top Model. We really appreciate the support. We'd love for you to really show your support by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you love the show, tell your group chat, your coworkers, your friends, your mama to check us out. And if you don't, maybe keep that one to yourself. Thanks again to all of our listeners. The Curse of America's Next Top Model is a production of Glass Podcasts, a division of Glass Entertainment Group in partnership with iHeart Podcasts. The show is executive produced by Nancy Glass, hosted and senior produced by me, Bridget Armstrong. Our story editor is Monique Laborde. Also produced by Ben Fetterman and Andrea Gunning. Associate producers are Alicia Key, Kristen Melcury, and Curry Richmond. Consulting producers are Oliver Twixt and Kate Taylor. Our iHeart team is Allie Perry and Jessica Kreincheck. Audio editing and mixing by Andrew Calloway and Matt Del Vecchio. The Curse of America's Next Top Model theme music was composed by Oliver Baines. Music library provided by Myber Music. Special thanks to everyone we interviewed for this podcast, especially the models for sharing their stories. And for more podcasts from iHeart, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also check out the Glass Podcast Instagram, @Glass Podcast, for Curse of America's Next Top Model behind-the-scenes content and more.
A decade ago, I was on the trail of one of the country's most elusive serial killers. But it wasn't until 2023 when he was finally caught. The answers were there, hidden in plain sight. So why did it take so long to catch him? I'm Josh Zeman, and this is Monster, Hunting the Long Island Serial Killer, the investigation into the most notorious killer in New York since the Son of Sam. Available now. Listen for free on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm John Polk. For years, I was the poster boy of the conversion therapy movement, the ex-gay who married an ex-lesbian and traveled the world telling my story of how I changed my sexuality from gay to straight. You might have heard my story, but you've never heard the real story.
John has never been anything but gay, but he really tried hard not to be.
Listen to Atonement, the John Polk story, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Kyle. Could you draw up a quick document with the basic business plan? Just one page, as a Google Doc, and send me the link? Thanks.
Hey, just finished drawing up that quick one-page business plan for you. Here's the link.
But there was no link. There was no business plan. I hadn't programmed Kyle to be able to do that yet. I'm Evan Ratliff, here with a story of entrepreneurship in the AI age. Listen as I attempt to build a real startup run by fake people. Check out the second season of my podcast, Shell Game, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Cheryl McCollum, host of the podcast Zone 7. Zone 7 ain't a place, it's a way of life. I've worked hundreds of cold cases you've heard of and thousands you haven't. We started this podcast to teach the importance of teamwork in solving these crazy crimes. Come join us in learning from detectives, prosecutors, authors, canine handlers, forensic experts, and most importantly, victims' family members. Listen to Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.